Hey, so EJ, we're here today. It's our first episode of Hockey Talk.
It is.
And I'm really excited to have you here. And interesting enough that we're doing a talk about hockey, but we're talking with a professional sprint coach and a performance expert. So anyway, welcome to Hockey Talk.
Thank you very much. I feel honored that I'm on episode 1. Like, let's go, let's do this.
You're the man. You've always been the man, and you're always going to be the man.
Yeah, I love the way you pump my tires, man. Thank you.
Anyway, like I said, I mean, and I've been in this industry for a long time.
Yes.
I know that even one of the players that we worked with, Alex Petrovic, and he mentioned about there being trainers, then there was NHL trainers, and then there was you.
Yeah.
And anyway, so I do feel that you're a master human performance coach, and really excited to work with you again here in Vernon. And you know, some of the things, the projects that we're working on, like Skate Fast and anything. So if you could talk a little bit about that, and then we'll talk about some of the players that we've worked with.
Yeah, so I mean, our involvement goes back to 2010.
Yeah.
So that's quite the journey that we've had together. And something that I probably haven't done that I should do now is thank you for confiding in me and trusting in me when you barely even knew me back in 2010 to work with these players. But I'm assuming that you probably heard a lot about me through our former mutual, or our mutual friend there. But with the hockey players, getting into this sport with the hat that I wear as a speed coach, I found that track and field had something so powerful to offer, not just hockey, but so many sports. And hockey was one of the first sports that allowed me to step into the room and stand on my soapbox and share my message. And that was that speed kills. And that speed is a skill, and it has to be trained. Just like shooting a puck, just like, you know what I mean, having that mind for making the right kind of decisions when on the ice, the same goes into effect when it comes to getting to the puck faster, or in my case, getting down to the finish line sooner. So I drew this connection, and I was like, wow, I want to make these hockey players faster. And thank you for letting me have that opportunity. And you know, the journey that we've had together, you know, we've seen so many players excel, from, you know, an Alex Petrovic, who I lastly worked with when he was playing with the Panthers, who definitely improved his speed, you know, going backwards to Tyler Innes when he was with Buffalo Sabres, Jared Spurgeon when he went to Minnesota, who's now, I believe, the captain for Minnesota Wild. You know, Brett Ponich, to Kyle Chipchera, who I believe was on the junior team.
Yeah, and then currently Ty Smith, he's with Pittsburgh, and then Ian Mitchell, who just got traded to, who did he just get traded to?
Help us out.
Yeah, who did he just get traded to? Ian Mitchell is just from Chicago to Boston. That's where he went.
Yes, I
he was
remember
part of the Taylor Hall deal.
Yeah.
It just happened.
Well, that's awesome. And I love working with the next generation of athletes, or even the current generation of athletes who are doing their thing. One thing that I would always say to them, and perhaps they would remember me by this, is I would tell them, handle your business. You know, you are your own business, so take care of business. There's going to be a certain level of selfishness that you have to have with the intent of you profiting, but no one else, no deficit with anybody else. So it's not like you're trying to rob somebody of their time or anything. Your goal is to just get better, so that when you go back to your organization, to your team, even to your family, you're a better human being. Because the training isn't just about setting an athlete up to succeed on the ice, but also off, because it's the mindset that is a big part of it.
Yeah, because they're going to be humans a lot longer than they're going to be hockey players.
Exactly.
Yeah,
you know,
that's awesome. So one of the things that I've recognized in our work together, and this is just something that I developed or thought about, you know, just working, is signature skills.
Yeah.
And you know, like, everybody has a signature, and part of why a signature, you know, defines who that individual is. And one of the things that, and I'm completely confident in this, is that a signature skill in hockey is skating.
Yeah.
And you know, not everybody skates the same way, but one of the things that we've talked about is how do we take, you know, people, a lot of things that when players go for feedback and things, and coaches will throw out, well, you got to go work on your first 3 steps, or you got to go improve your skating, but they don't really define what that means, or how that player is going to do that. And working with you, one of the things that, you know, and even just picking up, is that first step, you know, the contact with the ground, you know, all that. And so could you talk a little bit about that?
I'll take a step back for a second just to address what you talked about, where, you know, the skating coach, for example, may say, I need, first 3 steps, this or that, and it could be, you're saying like it could be a bit ambiguous, like they don't really dive in and
Exactly.
like or hit the nail on the head. That's a problem. I know some coaches who are like that, and why that's a problem is you're identifying a problem, but you're not identifying the clear solution, and that could really mess with the player's head. That could really fuck with someone's head. I've had that experience particularly with physiotherapists, where they go, "Oh, your glutes aren't firing," and you go, "Okay, well, tell me how the fuck to get my glutes to fire." Like your glutes aren't firing, then walk away. And you're like, "I want to give you more money." So perhaps it's the same thing with the skating coaches who do that. I don't know, or maybe they just need to do their homework a little bit more. When it comes to what I do, dry land, which we found as a strong relationship, seeing success on ice, like getting the players to skate faster, is fooling them to understand physics. That's pretty much it. Telling a story and getting them to understand physics, getting them to understand that the system that they have, there are certain landmark positions that we see in the very successful and fastest skaters. Not everybody's gonna hit those landmark positions, but I say if I can get you close to those shapes, and then making sure that the forces are as maximal as they can be, we are probably going to get something that we're probably going to get a result that is you're skating faster. You become more efficient. As long as you're also considering the fact that it's kind of a paradoxical experience where you're trying to be as forceful as possible, but as relaxed as possible. Because when you watch a Connor McDavid skate, it looks like the guy's like he can eat a sandwich at the same time, right? And then we take a look at a Usain Bolt and you see the same thing. You could take a look at so many other sports and it's the same thing. So that's the landmark, that is the clue that success is left behind in sport performance. So we'll take those. They offer context, but now we have to try and meet the athlete where they are and then see what's going on. So individualization, where I should go with this, or where I'll conclude with this, is individualization for the athlete is very important. Not just in the communication, but even with what I expect to see in terms of performance. It's not going to be exactly the same as across the board with all athletes. So
yeah, and that's one of the things that I've come to really respect about you, is that your ability to take what and if you want to say from the ground, and then transfer it to the ice, and then because ultimately the goal is to make them a better hockey player.
Exactly.
Yes, we want them to perform on the ground and perform. We want to ultimately make them better hockey players, and that's one thing that I feel that you are a true expert, is how to take that information and transfer it to the ice, to on-ice performance.
Well, I have to watch. That's why you'll see me, watching, especially when we first started working together in 2010. The ice was right there. It was super easy for me to just walk over after one of the sessions and just watch, and observing that, I guess you could say observation of human movement, observation of the skater, watching what's happening in terms of like the kinetics and kinematics of limb movement and forces at play, the language that they're speaking, watching that and then identifying that, and then trying to actually feel it, which is difficult for me because I'm not a hockey player. I did power skating for 4 years. I could still skate. Am I really good? Mediocre at best. I can skate fast. How fast? I don't know. I've never put a clock on. Maybe we should do that someday. But definitely, I have to respect the sport, because I can't if I just approached it as a sprint coach, I think I'd fail. So understanding what's taking place on the ice is important, but seeing the similarities in acceleration, in sprinting and accelerating or skating on ice, skating really fast, they're cousins. They're, if anything, they're step relatives. You know what I mean? It's a stepbrother and 2 stepbrothers right there.
Can you also, there's a couple things I want you to talk about, and I talk to athletes about this all the time, and sometimes I feel that a lot of pieces get missed when you're developing an athlete, and one of them is the connection, the mind connection. And a lot of times, even looking at, parents will send their kids to power skating, and then I'll tell them, hey, well, you got to be careful with just sending them there, because if they're getting the message that they got to go there because they're slow, if they think they're slow, well, they're going to be slow. And you could take them to the skating coach all day long, and they're going to be slow. So a little bit about the mind connection, about how important that is, that the athlete is feeling that feeling of being fast and as fast as they can be.
You want to be in an environment that challenges you to think faster. So you could say fake it until you make it. I say it's more about teaching people to embrace it until they feel it. You know what I mean? So making sure that you're creating a training environment for the athletes where they feel okay being vulnerable, but they're ready to be more courageous than anything else in their beliefs in themselves. You know, so like for example, I see a group of athletes. This is just me tapping into like what's going on in my mind when I'm working with a group of athletes, and I may see some individuals, I'll archetype them. Some, they're just genetically wired, gifted to just move their limbs very fast. Velocity in them is like they're twins. But then I'll see some athletes who are a little bit slower, or I'd say they look like they don't have much fast twitch fiber in their body. So twitch rate's a lot slower. That's okay. An athlete like that, you just continue to encourage them just the same way. You know, it might make someone frustrated if you say, think faster, but there's ways around it in the language that you use with them. And not only that, with the drills that you give them, So I'd say coaching an athlete and being very verbal can work, but you have to be careful. The best way to go in my eyes is you create the right training environment in terms of the variation of the exercise and then say less, So you could say this exercise is called hot soil or hot ground, and they're stepping off of a box.
Right.
And they're like, okay, I kind of get it. It's hot ground. I got to get off really quick and then, back onto another box. Boom. And then it's like, connection. Yeah. So it's like I can pull you away from, think fast and and have that be the emphasis, and then feel frustrated because they're watching other kids just tear it up, and then you just give them that exercise, and And like you asked them, how much time did you feel like you spent on the ground? Oh, very little. I was imagining the ground was hot. Cool. All right.
Yeah, so now they're automatically feeling like they're faster.
Yeah.
A couple other things that I really appreciate about you.
Even though I know that didn't answer your question, the mindset thing was where you were going with that.
No, you did. And anyway, the other part of it is that, when I look at the kinetic chain from the top of a player's head down to the bottom of their feet, we could sit here all day and talk about those pieces.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I really appreciate about you is talking about the feet. The big toe, how much stronger we got to make the bottom of players' feet.
Yeah.
Because hockey players' feet are always in a shoe or in a skate.
In a coffin.
And and ultimately it makes their feet weak.
Yeah.
And so then there's injuries and different things. And then you can also, because we talk a lot about the ankle. And how important the ankle is in skating and performance, and a lot of people don't talk about the ankle. So anyway, can you just go through those three things from your big toe to the bottom of your feet right up to your ankle?
I'll ask you this question first, to preface with this question. If you put a cast on your arm, what happens? You have tissue, muscle that atrophies, you lose function. It's the law of use. Your body will start to purge what it doesn't use. So you have a player in a boot, kind of like a cast. Yes, it has its validity because it's got a blade on the end, and that's what helps them, displace on the ice. But you have something that immobilizes the small bones and the cool features that the foot has, right? The cool features of the feet and the hands are that they have a myriad of small bones so that we can pick things up and walk on different surfaces, and those things will stimulate certain muscles, at certain ratios to strengthen these areas, and then you have some really cool things you can do, in and out of the gym, when you're doing the right thing. So with that being said, I take a look at hockey, and understanding that, it's something that's woven into the sport. I can't change the boot, but what can you do? I can change what happens with the player when they're doing their supplemental training. So I can encourage more footwork, more sensory awareness stuff to try and get them sensing the bottom of their feet, not just, I can feel the bottom of my feet, but can I feel my heels? Can I manage my center of mass back by feeling my heels and leverage? Like if I do that, you have a better ability to leverage a muscle called your hamstrings to actually stabilize your pelvis, so pull you under, so it can actually improve the leveraging of your hip flexor and your glutes, versus if you tilt your pelvis forward and your center of mass is all the way stuck in your toes, then all of a sudden you deleverage hip flexors and glutes, so your skating may look a little funny. Mud flap central, all that stuff. We'll talk about mud flaps in a sec for anybody who doesn't know what that is. But training the feet, building sensory awareness there, and when you train the feet, if your exercise selection is carefully curated, then you can train your ankles, you can train you know, the shin down. You can train even higher than that because ultimately the system's integrated.
Yes.
You can isolate in quotations, because that's kind of a misnomer, but yeah, it's super imperative. Hockey, that's an injury, a common area that gets underplayed. That is like, it's a part of the injuries that are woven into the fabric of hockey. You know, you've heard me say that before. There's injuries that are woven into the fabric of every sport. Track and field, it's hamstrings. You know, hockey, boom, ankle sprains. So what do? You don't just watch them happen over and over. You build a more robust ankle. What's connected to the ankle, or what is delivering information to the ankle? Probably the bottom of the feet and the joints above it. So then you deal with that. And to me, that just makes sense. It's like common sense, but I guess common sense ain't that common. You know? Yeah. So, and you train the feet just as much as you train the thighs. I think our society, we get really hooked up on what do the thighs look like. We think that those are that area dominates. You can have really big, strong thighs and glutes, but your feet, we'll leave that. You're missing the boat. You're probably missing out on like a good 20 or 30% in terms of performance. Because the feet are the first thing on the ground. The feet are the thing that basically relaying information to the ice.
Absolutely.
Yes, the hips are a big driver, but if you have shitty feet,
that's your first point.
Yeah, it's your weak link. That's your weakest link. If you have shitty, or it could be your weakest link. And they say you're only as strong as your weakest link. Absolutely. So I have shitty feet.
So as I consider you to be a human performance coach, you've worked with hockey players, you've worked with a lot of different parents, and you know, in the sport. If you were talking directly to a parent right now and said, here, this is what I would focus on with your son or daughter in regards to helping with their performance, is there a key area that you would really focus on to help that athlete, and without not really knowing anything, but just to help a parent out, to give them some information?
I would work on the parent. I would work on the parent. And until I can identify like what the specific needs are, I would probably want to say less, you know, but hit him with the fundamentals. Just like that's kind of universal. You just hit people with the fundamentals, and it may be a reminder or it may be a very strong lesson. So what does nutrition look like for the family? What are their I'll say, like, do they have sound recovery protocols? What does the nutrition look like? What are the sleep habits and sleep environment, aka the sleep hygiene of the family? You know, and then if I'm talking to the parent, I'm going to talk about leading by example, and then supporting, not overwhelming the individual. You know, what do you need? What do you need? What do you think you need to be more successful? Maybe that would start to encourage the athlete to really make decisions for themselves, and then get the family involved, versus the other way around, where it's like, this is what you need, boom, boom, boom. You know, you want to develop someone who, like an athlete who's a critical thinker, because that's what's required on the ice, right? Think critically and, you know, reason, and then make your decisions, right? And it happens in a split second. If we want to talk about the athlete, I'll drive the first 2 points, which is the sound recovery protocols, nutrition and sleep. And then I'll talk about mindset. You know, mindset, super important. If you don't believe in yourself, you could probably still succeed if you're like just really genetically gifted and you're in the right kind of physical training environment. And I speak from experience, like I felt like my confidence levels as a sprinter weren't the greatest, but I had a good coach and I had a good training environment, and I ended up like doing fairly well, you know. Obviously along the way my confidence started to grow, and that's probably a reason why I just continued to improve. But I think it's paramount, because confidence to me is one of the highest transferring skills, if you want to call confidence a skill.
Yeah.
You know, or trait, or what would you call confidence? Quality or competence. There you go.
What they're good at.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
I mean, confidence comes from doing what you're good at.
Yeah.
I mean, and competence. I mean, if you're doing what you're good at, and that's when any player is ever struggling, says, "Oh, I mean, that's such an easy thing to throw out." Yeah, I got no confidence.
Yeah.
Well, where did it go? Like, no one took it away from you. Like,
yeah.
Okay, well, what are you good at? Okay, let's get you back to doing what you're good at, and then you can build, you know, from that. Because when you're playing your best, you're doing what you're really good at.
Yeah.
You know, so. anyway, that's awesome stuff. I got two things left for you here today.
Yeah.
You've been here in Vernon for a week. We've got another week to go.
Yeah.
Any highlights that you've seen from athletes, anything you've seen from here, maybe, not necessarily, you can mention names if you would like to, but just what you've seen working with hockey players over the past week that really excited you, or things that you think, this is some areas we need to continue to work on.
The attention and intention from the groups that I've been working with that stands out. Like the players, and I think you mentioned this, I perhaps laid a foundation last year, who knows, with some of the players, but even the new folks, like I feel like everybody's really paying attention. And I tell everyone at the beginning and at the end of sessions, I always remind them of two words. I say thank you for your attention and for your intention. Your attention to what it is that I'm presenting, your attention to the details, and then your intention to improve. And I'm seeing that like through and through. So whatever you got in the drinking water out here, it's phenomenal, because the athletes are very coachable here, and I love that. And the physicality that I see in the sessions, I really enjoy that. You probably heard me in the first couple sessions like cursing, telling the athletes, don't ever take your foot off the gas. Once you've grasped how to perform what it is that I'm asking you to perform, and you meet those expectations, I need you to get your damn foot on the fucking gas. And I'm seeing that. Like, I can see the competitiveness in a lot of the boys, a lot of the men, and I like that. Because if we don't have that, if we're not training like that, then what the hell are we doing on the ice?
Yeah, no, that's got to transfer there too, right?
Yeah. So, I think a lot of the athletes are excited about speed. Everyone visits the weight room. It's easy to visit the weight room, but it's not. It's almost easy to like get up and run fast, like running upright. But that's not what we're doing. We're working on acceleration. Your ability to go that's that 0 to 5, that early acceleration. How dangerous can you be? How much can you orientate your center mass forward to be what my friend and coach calls torso torpedo, to get down the ice or to make more goal scoring opportunities? Make those things happen. So I think that's exciting to a lot of these athletes, the idea of them being faster.
Yeah.
And then also being introduced to some new cues, some new exercises.
On that note, so the other project that we're working on is the Skate Fast program.
Yeah,
and working on together. Yes, and can you just talk a little bit about? Not that we've got to give all
top
the
secret.
Yeah, exactly. I don't want to give all the secrets away.
Yeah.
But just talk a little bit about the Skate Fast program and your involvement in that and how we're doing that together.
Yeah. So Run Fast, Skate Fast. It started off as the Run Fast project, and you and I had many conversations, and we were like, well, acceleration is key. That's a something supplemental to like the ice, the power skate, or excuse me, that's another conversation, but improving your skating. And so we put together this program with the intention of just helping the world, like if you increase the level of coaching in hockey and coaching certain skills, then by default, you're gonna see an improvement, especially if the product gets out there, you're gonna see an improvement in the level of performance. And I think this program, I know the idea was to revolutionize the speed in hockey. You know what I mean? So ultimately, the way the game is played, we want to make it a faster game. Teaching the skills through storytelling, a progression of drills that teach the skills that get people to understand what it's like to accelerate meaningfully, and then it's just balls to the wall, high intensity work, and there's no excuses. No one can do the fucking work for you. You do it your damn self, and you got to do it with vigor, and we're there to guide you. So that's Run Fast, Skate Fast.
Yeah, well, in your talk there, you said, I think, and here's what I know, EJ, with you, I know that you can make players faster and that we're going to make players faster.
We've done it many times.
So anyway, Matt, I love working with you.
And same, likewise.
Yeah, and
here's the 10 years.
Yeah, and we're
more than that.
Yeah, so thank you very much for being a part of our first program. Let's play, man.
Let's play.